Okay, so this is the key to section 2.5 part 1, and in this section you're talking about transformations. So we want to graph this function g of x, which is quadratic, using transformations. Alright, so the first thing we have to do is list a parent function, and so since this is the quadratic function, the parent function is going to be x squared. So that's x squared. Alright, now in this case there are two transformations, so notice that the plus 2 is underneath the square part, and so that's a horizontal horizontal transformation. If the number's on the outside, like the subtract 3, that's a vertical transformation, so that's a vertical translation. Alright, now you have to remember that with a horizontal you got to be very careful. So even though this says x plus 2, common mistake is that students think that the x squared, the parent function, will be translated 2 units to the right because of the plus 2, but it's incorrect. It's actually translated 2 units to the left. Okay, so, and this really compares very closely. It's the idea, that idea comes from the, if you remember the vertex form, or the standard form of a quadratic function. So remember, that's where we have y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. So it has to be of the form x minus h, and this is what this is. This right here is of that form. And so h is the x-coordinate of the vertex, remember the vertex, h, and then k is the y-coordinate. So that's where that comes from. Alright, so in this case, you're going to, first of all, you always do the vertical translation last. So the subtract 3 you're going to do last, especially if there's a reflection here. But always do that last, the vertical translation. So we're going to do the horizontal translation first. So you're going to say something like, we're going to take x squared, and we're going to shift it, and you must use the mathematical terms, horizontally, vertically, reflection. So take x squared and shift horizontally to the left 2 units. All right, make sure you use the word units. Don't use times, 2 times, 2 spaces. It's units. Say 2 units. All right, then once we got that part, the idea is once you shift the x squared 2 units to the left, then you're going to take that graph and you're going to shift it down vertically 3 units. So you're going to take then take that graph and shift it vertically down 3 units. Alright, so make sure you use the words vertical, horizontal, left, right, reflecting about the x-axis. Okay? Alright, so in this case now you're going to graph the parent function first. Now remember, when graphing the parent function, you must use these points that we mentioned in the video, so in the lesson. So remember, you have to use 0, and when x is 0, y would be 0 squared, which is 0. If x is 1, y would be 1 squared, which is 1. If x is negative 1, y would be negative 1 squared. Negative 1 times itself is a positive 1. If x is 2, y would be 2 squared, which is 4. And if x is negative 2, y would be negative 2 times itself, which is 4 as well. All right, and there's enough space here. See, it goes up to 9. There's enough to where you can actually, if you want to, but these are the required ones. You must use those at least. If you want to put 3 on this one, you can. 3 squared is 9, and negative 3 times itself is also 9. So my parent function then looks like this. You have 0, 0, 1, 1, negative 1, 1, 2, 4, negative 2, 4, 3, 9, right here, and negative 3, 9. So from this parent function, you can create other quadratic functions using translations. So this could have been a 3 out in front, a negative 2 out in front. So from this parent function, you can use the transformations to graph other versions of this x squared, of this quadratic function. Okay, so then we graph this. So my parent function looks like this. All right, now make sure you label this as f of x. So this is f of x. All right, now here's how we're going to graph g of x. We're going to use these transformations here. So here's how we're going to do this. You're going to take each of these 5 points right here, and you're going to perform these transformations on it. That's what you're going to do. That's what this lesson is all about, is moving the parent function, move the graph of the parent function using your transformations. So let's start with the vertex. So the vertex says, first thing I do is I got to shift each point 2 units to the left. Then once I shift 2 units to the left, then I shift it down 3 units, vertically down 3 units. Okay, so I go 3 units to the left, 1, 2, 3, and then down, 2. 1, 2, and then down 3. 1, 2, 3. So there's my new vertex. So this is going to be the point on g of x. Then I take this point here, and I go 2 units to the left as well. 1, 2, and then down 3. 1, 2, 3. Then here, 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3. And then here, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay? And so now, I guess something that looks like, make sure, okay, I get something that looks like this. And over here. Okay? And so this right here is g of x. So that's g of x. Okay. Now, number 2. So number 2, this time again, you're also dealing with a quadratic function. So my parent function will be x squared. And this time there are 3 transformations here. There's a reflection, a horizontal shift, and a vertical shift. Remember, when there's a reflection involved, you must do the vertical shift last. Okay, so basically what we're going to do first, and it doesn't matter which of these 2 you do first. You can do the reflection first, or you can do the horizontal shift first. It does not matter. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to take x squared and then shift it horizontally to the right. This time it's to the right because x minus 3. To the right, 3 units. Okay? And whatever that graph is, remember, you've got to visualize this. So if I can find, let's see. All right, so basically you're doing this. So you see this is, oops, that's x squared plus 5. All right, so let's say we had this right here. So this is x squared. All right, so you're going to shift it horizontally to the right 3 units. So 1, 2, 3. Remember that? How we did that in the lesson? And then you're going to reflect it about the x-axis. So look like this. All right, look like this. And then you're going to shift it up 2 units. So your final graph should look like this. So in your mind, that's what you should be thinking about. That's what the final graph should look like. Okay? All right. So basically, when you shift it to the right 3 units, so you see that's what it says. It says I take x squared and I shift it horizontally to the right 3 units. I'm shifting it to the right 3 units. So that's my parent function. So 1, 2, 3. Okay. And then I take that graph. So that's when I say number 2. So number 2 is I take that graph and I reflect it and reflect it about the x-axis. So in other words, you're doing this now. So you're doing this. You're going 1, 2, 3, and then you're reflecting it about the x-axis, and you get this. So that's what you're getting. Okay? Then you're going to take that graph we just did, this right here, and you're going to do the third transformation. So the third one says, then I'm going to take this graph that's opening down and move it up 2 units. 1, 2. All right, so always think about this in your mind. So then take that graph and shift it vertically up two units. Okay? All right, so we're going to do the parent function first. So 1, 0, 0. The origin is the vertex. Negative 1, 1. 2, 4, -2, 4. All right, so we're going to use those 5 points. Now remember, those are 5 points that you're going to perform those transformations on to get that the parabola of your final graph of g of x. So remember, this is f of x right here. Okay, now here's how we do this. So you're going to use those transformations. Okay, so I'm going to take the vertex first. Take the vertex first, and I'm going to go 3 units to the right. So you're going to go 1, 2, 3. And then you're going to reflect that point about the x-axis. Well, it's on the x-axis, so it's going to stay there when you reflect about the x-axis. Then number 3, I'm going to take that point that I just reflected about the x-axis, and I'm going to move it up 2 units. So 1, 2. So there's the, let me use red. So this right here is the new vertex. So that's going to be the vertex of g of x. So now I take this point here, and I'm going to move it 3 units to the right. 1, 2, 3. But I've got to reflect it about the x-axis. So when I reflect it about the x-axis, see, this is the x-axis. This point here, you see it's 1 unit above. So when I reflect it, it becomes 1 unit below. Okay, 1 unit above, 1 unit below. All right, now that's not, now remember, that's just the second transformation we did. That's just number 2 right here. So now I get to number 3. So number 3 says, and I got to move it vertically up 2 units. So we did 1, 2, 3, reflect, and then move it up 2 units. 1, 2. All right. Then we take this point here. So I go 3 units to the here. So go 3 units to the left, to the right. 1, 2, 3. Then reflect it about the x-axis. So we see this is 1 unit above. So I go 1 unit below, and then I move that up 2 units. 1, 2. Okay. So then I take this point here. I go 3 units to the right. 1, 2, 3. Then I reflect it about the x-axis. So notice only 3 units to the right. 1, 2, 3. This is 4 units above the x-axis. I go 4 units below. 1, 2, 3, 4. But then I take that point where I'm at. Oops, sorry. So let's do this again. So I go 3 units to the right. 1, 2, 3. Then I've reflected about the x-axis. So if you need to, look at the distance above the x-axis. 1, 2, 3. See, this is 4 units above, right? So I go 4 units below. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's where I'm at. So I take that point right here and I move it up 2 units. Move it vertically up 2 units. 1, 2. And so there's my new point. And then you do the same thing here. I go 3 units to the right. 1, 2, 3. I reflected about the x-axis. So that's 4 units above. I go 4 units below. Just like this. And then I move that up 2 units. 1, 2. All right, and so this right here, this right graph would then be the graph of g of x. Okay, and it kind of makes sense. So just like we did a while ago, let's talk about this. You see, this is correct. See, I take this right here, and I shift it 3 units to the right. 1, 2, 3. Okay, then I take that green graph and I reflect it, so I get this, and I move it up 2 units. 1, 2, and that's what you get. All right, now they don't quite overlap because of the drawing I did, but because of this right here. But that's it. So remember, when I drew this one, probably the grid lines were a little bit scaled differently. All right, so that is the key to worksheet 2.5, part 1.